Scott, let's kind of keep on the same wavelength here, but not talk so much about coaches. There are a number of different Bengals players who are under pressure as well this year to perform. The reasons, much like the coaching staff and the reasons we brought up with that, vary. They can range from, a player signed a recent pretty big contract extension in this offseason, last offseason, that sort of thing. They might be facing a contract year this year and have questions as to why they should receive a big contract extension. There are players who are in high-profile positions, have not played well in these big games like we just talked about. I'm curious to know some of the players, maybe a couple from you, a couple of Bengals players who are really under some big-time pressure this year as the Bengals try and get back to the postseason. And why?
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying and why, and the reasons why.
Okay, I'm going to give a couple different guys for a couple different reasons. The first one is Jeremy Hill. And you think, well, it doesn't make a lot of sense because we just drafted Mixon and we have Giovanni Bernard. And I think that's why. It's more important for him to step up because he's playing for a contract somewhere, probably not with the Bengals, but he's under a lot of pressure to keep his playing time, to keep his role in the offense because you don't use a high second-round pick on it. Well, I guess it wasn't high. You don't use a second-round pick on a guy because you have no intention of playing him. So you figure the Bengals like Mixon. He can be a three-down back. He can pretty much do everything they want Hill to do except do it faster and better. So he's someone who I think is under a lot of pressure. I think he's seen that. He came in, I think the OTA is in better shape, kind of a renewed commitment or whatever. So I think he's someone for his perspective needs to step up. And if he does step up because he knows, hey, I'm playing for a contract to play somewhere next year and I want to get paid. I don't want to be a guy who gets, forgotten in the offense, gets 400 yards rushing and gets like some league minimum contract stuck on the Browns or something. If he wants to make some money and, he's someone's going to have to step it up. But as far as the success of the team, the one who I think who is under the most pressure, and he's been underrated, been a good guy, I want to say is Andy Dalton. And the reason I'm saying that is because the offensive line, because he needs to – the one thing he's always kind of struggled with is when he came in the league and for his first few years, whenever he got any sort of pressure, he would just kind of collapse and wait for the sack to get him. He's gotten a little better at that as far as, okay, I'm getting some pressure. I'm going to extend the play a little bit, maybe step up, look for a guy to throw it at right away before, the pressure hits me. He needs to take a major step forward in that area because, I think our expectations are the offensive line could potentially be really bad this year. And if it turns out to be as bad as it possibly could be, based on how Boyhe and Fisher and Bodine have played up through this point in their careers, he's going to have to become basically Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers doesn't really play behind the best offensive lines, but he is great at sensing pressure, eluding pressure, extending the play, finding the open guy and getting the ball to them. And that's something I think is going to be very important to see Dalton do this year for the team to have success. I mean, he's very good. You give him blocking. He can read a defense. He can find the open guy. More often than not, he can get it to the open guy. Or he can heave it up to A.J. Green, who's going to catch the ball in triple coverage. But if you get pressure on him every play, as soon as he gets the ball, can Dalton take that next step and be that guy who senses the pressure, reads the pressure, can elude it long enough to get to the hot receiver or someone who's going to catch the ball? And then secondly, I think he's also under pressure because you've given him a ton of weapons at this point. You used a high pick on John Ross, used a second-round pick last year on Tyler Boyd. You have an experienced veteran who's fairly decent in Brandon LaFell. You have an elite wide receiver in A.J. Green. You have a great tight end when healthy in Tyler Eifert. You now have two running backs who are very good at catching the ball in Mixon and Bernard. And you've kind of said, okay, we've given you pretty much every offensive weapon that we can give a team can reasonably give you. So, I mean, we've gotten you great tight end, great receiver, running backs can catch the ball. Pretty much everything you need to succeed is right here. So I think he's going to be under pressure to show he can use all those weapons. He can get the ball to them and let them make plays. And he can do that while possibly under a lot of duress. So for that reason, I'm going to say I think Dalton, for the team's success, is going to have to step it up and overcome what could be weaknesses in front of him so he can get the ball to all these playmakers who they seem to have, at least at this point.
He'll either have to be Aaron Rodgers or he may have to be Russell Wilson, and that's a little Easter egg for our next segment coming up here in just a few minutes. I find myself having trouble disagreeing with any of those players that you mentioned, Scott. I do like that you mentioned, again, those tackles, Jake Fisher and Cedric Ogbuehi, and I think I look at them and this line really will hinge on those two guys' performance, and they have largely been disappointing, and that's being kind, especially Cedric Ogbuehi last year in his stint as a starting right tackle. It was pretty awful. Now he's moving to the left side. Hopefully things will be getting better. We see some things on social media that show that he's taking his workouts very seriously and things of that nature. So maybe that'll translate on the field. But, you mentioned, it's so funny, you mentioned Andy Dalton and you say, hey, we've given you all of these weapons. We've given you all of these fun players to surround you with, to basically give the ball off to and let them do a lot of the work. Yet they've completely rolled the dice now on what may be more important, which are the guys that are protecting him. So that to me is, I think those two guys are two big ones to look at. I mentioned some contract situations. There's also Vontaze Burfict and Tyler Eifert. They have some things to prove in. And if they get contract extensions this summer, they will have more to prove in terms of being able to stay on the field, whether it's injuries for both of them, suspensions for Burfict. But, those guys have been to Pro Bowls. They've been productive players. And, I think they have something to prove in terms of if they do not get a contract extension this summer, they'll need to prove that they can stay healthy and be productive this year in order to get that extension next year, next offseason or during the season. But they'll also, if they do get that contract extension this summer, they'll need to prove that they are worth that type of money in terms of health and staying on the field, that sort of thing. One other guy that kind of springs to mind is Adam Jones. And again, I hate to kind of continue to make the guy this show's whipping boy, but he brings a lot of things on himself. And after his blow up in the wild card game and some other things we've seen from him and his extensive legal history, he's a guy who sometimes has trouble endearing himself to fans because of his actions and some of those things. And then there's the legal issue that took place this January. So now he signed a big contract extension in the 2016 offseason to make him a pretty solid starting corner. Now, he's up there, I believe he's 33, 34 years old, so he's at the very tail end of his career. He may not even see all 3 years of the extension that he signed, but he's under contract. He's probably going to start, even with this most recent issue. If he doesn't come out on the field and play well, I mean, he was still pretty solid last year. He definitely wasn't great in the punt return game when given limited chances. He wasn't a Pro Bowl cornerback, but he was pretty good. He was solid as a starter, I guess. Wasn't his best season, though. If he comes out and continues to erode in terms of talent, the age shows, maybe give up a few more big plays than we're accustomed to, you may see quite a few people turn on Jones and really – fairly or unfairly, point to the offseason issue as, something to criticize him about and or use it as a reason for his struggles. We'll see. I do think there is pressure on Adam Jones. Scott, you have another item you want to discuss on this topic.
Yeah, there was one thing you mentioned, and it made me think of an old MTV show from years ago called Pimp My Ride, which for some reason just reminds me of the Bengals offense this year, the way it's built. And I may be too logical. I don't know. But whenever I saw that show a few times, I had a roommate who loved watching that show. And the thing that always struck me as odd about it was they would take these crappy old cars, they would add all these bells and whistles, make them all fancy and shiny, put all this cool stuff on them. But at the end of the day, the engine, the chassis, the shocks, they were still crappy cars. They were just crappy cars with fancy, nice little fancy things on them. They were still going to fall apart in a few years. And that seems to be kind of how the Bengals are building the offense. They have all these great, bells and whistles and trinkets and, the speed receiver, this guy, that guy, all these, investment and guys that catch the ball, guys that run the ball, a good quarterback, elite tight end, whatever. But yet that core foundation, that thing that all this is built on, that offensive line is, like you said, that's where they're rolling dice. That's where they've kind of let that kind of erode from under them. And it's going to be very interesting to see, is this going to be something that, one of these cars that kind of hops up and down, has the base but doesn't move and is sitting on blocks in the, in the parking lot of Paul Brown Stadium? Or is this thing actually going to be, zipping up and down I-71 and I-75, going through Cincinnati, with all the people latching their bandwagon on saying, yeah, let's. So I don't know. I'm just very curious to see what. Sorry, it's kind of a tangent, I guess.
Yeah, I like it. I like the metaphor there. Yeah, it comes down, if you want to use another metaphor, if this team is a house of cards, or something where it's all flash and not a lot of substance. And sometimes the all flash teams, not as often, but sometimes teams with a lot of flash and a lot of weapons, with deficiencies in other areas that aren't as visible to the casual fan's eye. Sometimes teams can get past it, whether you have a great quarterback and a lot of different offensive weapons, a quarterback with a lot of deficiencies, but an outstanding defense. We've seen teams go far with glaring deficiencies, and we don't want to say yet that the offensive line is a glaring deficiency. Obviously, it's the biggest area of concern, and we haven't seen this group play to get out there, start games together, and play against NFL talent. But we all know it takes time for NFL offensive line units to gel. There's a lot of new pieces on this line. Some guys playing positions that they're not used to. So there is a lot to worry about. But also, there's 2 first-round picks on there. There's 2 fourth-round picks and a second-round pick that are starting for you. So there's a lot of high investments on that offensive line, and they're guys that the coaching staff felt that they were very talented, some of which have shown it, others have not. So we'll see what happens. In the YouTube chat, I saw Greg L. say Jake Fisher plus Cedric, oh boy, he equals this season. I think that's, a little over dramatic, but it's pretty true. And I think also Greg mentioned to your metaphor, Scott, he said, so it's a 1988 Nissan Pulsar. I have not had the pleasure of driving that vehicle, but I don't see many of those on the road anymore myself. So I'm assuming that's probably not a very good car. And hopefully the Bengals aren't falling into that category. We're gonna get to our next segment. Before we do, if you have some questions, we're going to try and get to some listener questions at the end of the show. We saw a couple that came our way in the YouTube chat. Keep sending those to us. We're going to try and get to those at the end of the show. You can tweet them at us at BengalsOBI, whether it's during the live feed or after. You can tweet them at us, or you can email your questions. We've had a few over the past couple of weeks that have come through email, theobinsider@gmail.com. You can send them there as well. Comments, questions can also be taken when you download the show on iTunes, on YouTube, on SoundCloud, and on Cincy Jungle. We scour through those, and we appreciate the feedback.